found Wallace Wallace because they've been working so hard to find him. And then when they opened the door and saw this guy, they were like, wow, this has to be Wallace Wallace. And the guy even said, I'm Wallace Wallace. So let's see what happens. Okay, we're at chapter 10. Let's see. Let's make sure you guys can see this. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to make it. It's a little laggy, so just listen, okay? Ruth Rose said, Ruth Rose, what are you talking about? Josh said. Dink didn't know what to think except that he was getting a headache. What makes you think I'm Wallace Wallace? Mavis asked. Ruth Rose walked over to Mavis. May I borrow your scarf? She said, remember, they kept mentioning her scarf in the last paragraph. They mentioned it twice. So that to me made me think it was a clue because I'm like, it's just a stupid scarf. Why would the author put that in here? But that makes us think, oh, wait, is it just a stupid scarf? May I borrow your scarf? Ruth Rose says. Ruth Rose held the scarf up so everyone could see. When I first saw this scarf, I thought these little black letters were M's. She said, M for Mavis. She looked at Mavis Green, but they're not M's, are they? She turned the scarf completely upside down. What do they look like now? Dink stepped a little closer. They're little W's now. Right. W, W. For Wallace, Wallace. Ruth Rose pointed at the man. You just said you lived in a little cottage. But Wallace Wallace lives in a big castle in Maine. It says so on the cover of The Silent Swamp. Ruth Rose pointed at Mavis's book bag. Seeing your bag again made me remember something. I thought of today. Josh read that your castle was called Moose Manor. There's a picture of a moose on the side of your bag. Oh, look at these clues coming out. Ruth Rose handed the scarf back to Mavis. And we read that Wallace Wallace's favorite color is green, like green ice cream. And you chose the name Mavis Green for your fake name. Everyone started staring at Ruth Rose, except for the man they had untied. He started laughing. Cat's out of the bag now, sis, he said. Then Mavis laughed and gave Ruth Rose a hug. Yes, Ruth Rose, Mavis said. I really am Wallace Wallace. Oh my gosh, I got goosebumps, guys. She put her hand on the man's shoulder. And this is my brother, Walker Wallace. We've been planning my kidnapping for weeks. Dink stared at Mavis, or whoever she was. You mean Wallace Wallace is a woman? He said. Yes, Dink, I am a woman, and I'm definitely Wallace Wallace. She winked at him. Honest. The real Wallace Wallace, sat on the bed. She took off her glasses, pulled the barrettes out of her hair. She shook her hair until it puffed out in a mass of curls. Thank goodness, I can be myself now. She said, all day I've had to act like timid Mavis Green. I can't wait to get out of this fuddy-duddy dress and into my jeans again. She kicked off her shoes and wiggled her toes in the air. Boy, does that feel good. Dink blinked and shook his head. Mavis Green really was Wallace Wallace. He couldn't believe it. But why did you pretend to be kidnapped? He asked. The real Wallace Wallace grinned at the kids' surprised faces. I owe you an explanation. My new book is about a children's mystery writer who gets kidnapped. In my book, some children rescue. Can we see this? Some children rescue the writer. I wanted to find out how real kids might solve the mystery, she explained. Dink smiled. She then smiled at Dink. Then your letter came in inviting me to Green Lawn, and that's when it gave me the idea to fake my own kidnapping. I'd become Mavis Green and watched what happened. Oh, yeah, Dink said. In your last letter, you said you were doing some research in Connecticut. See, all these clues are just rushing in. You're like, oh my gosh, I remember when you said that. She nodded yes, and I mentioned the word kidnap in the letter to get you thinking along those lines. I thought you'd have to give you more clues, but you solved the mystery all by yourself. All right, so here's what Wallace Wallace looks like. So Wallace Wallace is just a fake name that she uses to write under. All right. Awesome. Here's her brother. So they planned this kidnapping. It's fake. It was a fake kidnapping because Wallace Wallace wanted to see how kids would react and how they solved the crime because that's what she's writing a book about. Dink laughed. You recognized me from the bookstore from my picture, he said, and you didn't send me a picture. So that way I wouldn't recognize you. So that's why she never sent Dink a picture back, because she didn't want him to know what she looked like, because then she wouldn't be able to do this research. Then my nutty sister dragged me into her plan, Walker Wallace said. I should be home checking my lobster pots. While you were eating lunch, Walker and I ate ours up here, Wallace said. Then just before 2 o'clock, I tied him to the chair and ran downstairs to meet you up front of me as Mavis. Wallace threw back her head and laughed. Do you remember downstairs when Dink said there was something fishy on the 3rd floor? She got up and stood next to her brother. Well, I'm always teasing Walker about smelling fishy from handling his lobster bait. So when you said something was fishy in the hotel, I had to pretend to cough so you wouldn't know I was really laughing. Boy, did you really have us fooled, Dink said. Wallace grinned. Mr. Paskey was in on it. I had to tell him the truth. As you saw this morning at the book nook, my little scheme made him very nervous. I promised him I'd come back and do a real book signing soon, but I'll be in disguise, so be prepared for anything. Dink shook his head. I was so disappointed because I couldn't meet my favorite author this morning, he said, and I've been with you all day and didn't even know it. She looked at Dink. I'm so sorry I tricked you. Will you forgive me? Sure, he blushed. I have a question, Josh said. Where did you really sleep last night? Right here, in room 302. A few weeks ago, I telephoned to reserve 2 rooms next to each other. Last night, I checked into room 303 as Wallace Wallace, the man. Up in room 303, I took off the hat, coat, and sunglasses, and I sneaked back down to the lobby wearing a blonde wig. I checked again into room 302. Did you smudge the signature? Ruth Rose asked. Oh, you noticed that? Wallace said. I'm so used to signing my real name in books, I started to write Wallace, so I accidentally smudged it. I have a question, Miss Wallace. What should we call you? Dink said. My friends call me Wallace, she said. Well, the taxi driver told us you were smiling in the taxi. What were you smiling about? Wallace was smiling now. Oh, about a lot of things. First, I was wearing a man's disguise, and I knew that made me feel pretty silly. And I knew I was going to meet you, one of my biggest fans, and I was happy because I knew whatever happened the next days would be fun. I sure had fun, Josh said, grinning. Poor Mr. Paskey having to lie to everybody with a straight face. Boy, did I have a hard time pretending to be Mavis all day, Wallace said, but my plan worked. I met 3 brilliant detectives. You helped me to see how real kids would investigate a kidnapping. Now I can go back into Maine and finish my book. How come your book jackets never say that you're a woman? Ruth Rose said. Wallace smiled. Because of my name, most people assume that I'm a man, she explained. I let them think that so I can do my research easier. I've learned that people clam up if they know I'm Wallace. So out in public, I pretend I'm Mavis Green, just a regular person, not a mystery writer. I get it, Dink said. You don't have your picture on your book so people can't recognize you. Right, and I hope you guys will keep my secret. We will. Right, guys? Ruth Rose said. Thank you. Any more questions? Wallace asked. Yeah, Walker said, giving his sister a look. When do we leave? I got lobsters waiting on me. I have a question for you too, Dink said. Will you send me your picture now? Yes, but I'll do better than that, Wallace said. I'll dedicate my next book to you 3. To my 3 new friends, Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose did a triple high five. Excuse me, Mr. Linkletter said from the door where he'd been standing. They all looked at him. It's nearly checkout time. Everyone laughed. Mr. Linkletter smiled, but just a little bit. Oh my goodness. That was wild.